Oura files confidential IPO for smart rings. The confidential filing arrives at a moment when Aura's subscription revenue has become the dominant valuation driver, not the hardware itself. That distinction will matter once the S1 details hit the tape. Apple has 18 months to decide whether to build its own ring or acquire a smaller player to close the gap. Taiwanese component makers should already be modeling for either scenario or risk missing allocations in the coming supply cycle. Yamaha opens India Robotics Support Division. Yamaha's new division targets the gap between robot sales and reliable uptime that Indian factories have complained about for years. Service response times will now determine which vendors win automation contracts. FANUC and ABB must either open comparable centers in Gurugram or accept slower adoption rates in the region over the next 18 months. Local system integrators gain leverage as a result, shifting power away from hardware-only suppliers in the process. REPS raises $23.6 million for road energy tech. Road-embedded generators still need proof that they survive heavy truck traffic without frequent replacement. The raise buys time to gather that data before bidding on public infrastructure contracts. Expect European agencies to require pilot installations on 2 major highways by late 2025, or the concept stalls. Construction firms will watch closely for maintenance cost disclosures that could kill wider adoption across the continent. British business bank backs Antler with £25 million. The £25 million commitment lets Antler extend its founder residency program deeper into UK universities without diluting returns for LPs. That changes how quickly American seed funds must build local networks. Sequoia and Index will either station partners in London or route deals through Antler co-investments within 12 months. University tech transfer offices gain a new preferred partner as a result. Meta quietly launches Forum app. Meta's low-key release tests whether users want structured communities inside an app they already open daily. Moderation costs will determine if the experiment scales or stays niche. Reddit must enhance its discovery tools or lose discussion volume to Meta's version where ads follow users automatically and moderation remains centralized. Publishers should track engagement shifts over the next 2 quarters. SolarSquare eyes up to $60 million raise. Interest from multiple funds signals that rooftop solar economics finally clear the hurdle for scale in India. Hardware margins will compress once exclusive supplier contracts kick in. Smaller installers without similar backing will struggle to match pricing in Tier 2 cities. Watch for 3 of them to face acquisition pressure or outright exit by Q3 2025 if this capital lands on schedule. Xreal advances smartglasses hardware. Mastering waveguide optics at consumer volumes still trips up most wearable makers. This progress shifts the bottleneck from hardware to software ecosystems that can actually use the lighter form factor. Google will need to lock in exclusive content deals within 12 months or watch rival platforms capture the first wave of developer mindshare. Battery and comfort constraints will decide which apps survive the first enterprise pilots. Dreamy alarm clock gadget debuts. Most users still charge phones bedside despite knowing the blue light cost. This device tries to break that loop by replacing the nightstand screen entirely. Phone replacement cycles will stretch another 6 months on average if the gadget catches on with parents tracking teen sleep. That hits upgrade revenue hardest at carriers already facing slowing device sales. Mattress makers stand to gain if sensor partnerships follow. Apple defends App Store rules in Epic case. The court win preserves flexibility on commissions, yet the real battle moves to how developers route payments outside the store without triggering new audits. Smaller studios will test alternative processes first, pushing those firms to add compliance layers that raise their own fees. Expect the first wave of those tools to appear within 9 months as test cases multiply across regions. Peak startup doubles ARR to $10 million. Reaching $10 million in recurring revenue usually triggers expansion hiring, but this trajectory points instead to deeper automation of its core workflow. That choice keeps headcount flat while margins expand, a signal competitors will copy to protect their own valuation conversations. SAP now has 12 months to match the feature velocity or watch more of its install base test lighter alternatives. Reps Energy closes Series A round. The term sheet tied disbursements to prototype yields rather than calendar milestones. That structure shifts risk onto component makers who now scramble to secure specialized magnets ahead of volume runs. If yields clear by Q4, Reps Energy gains leverage over utility partners negotiating supply deals. Watch the margin compression hit those suppliers first when they renegotiate with their own foundries. Magnet suppliers must either expand capacity or lose out to overseas alternatives within 18 months. Google rolls out disco ball search icons. The icon change quietly tests whether visual flair can lift daily active minutes without touching core ranking. Product teams at rival browsers now face pressure to match the refresh cycle or risk looking dated in App Store screenshots. Search ad loads stay untouched, yet any uptick in session time feeds the auction volume directly. Rivals must decide whether to copy the glitter treatment before the next OS update cycle locks in visual standards. Metrics decide global spread by year end. Hook's audio app shuts down operations. Former notebook LM engineers now enter a market where big tech audio teams hold the distribution advantage. Their departure leaves a gap in independent audio tooling that no pure startup has filled since voice apps consolidated. Google will accelerate hiring from the Hook's alumni pool to bolster its generation features. Smaller platforms lose access to custom models the founders might have released under different circumstances. The team split also reduces the chance of any open model releases from that group. Blue Origin cleared for New Glenn flight. The clearance sets a hard clock on launch cadence that forces payload customers to finalize integration schedules within the next quarter. Competitors with manifest backlogs gain breathing room to court any wobbly contracts before New Glenn reaches orbit. Insurance premiums for the vehicle class may drop if the first post-clearance flight succeeds without anomaly. Watch how that pricing shift affects smaller launch providers who rely on high-risk surcharges to stay competitive. Pricing effects surface in next year's bids. Spotify tests top fan ticket reservations. The test hands Spotify direct data on which listeners convert from streams to live events, data no ticketing partner has shared at this granularity before. Artists gain a new lever to reward superfans without ceding control of guest lists to traditional promoters. Ticketmaster now must either integrate similar listening-based tiers or watch its premium packages lose differentiation. Expect the first public API access for fan status checks to appear in partner contracts within 12 months. Kitchen gadgets ease adulting chores. Early sales data shows these 6 devices moving fastest in bundles rather than standalone. The pattern points to a coming requirement that every new model ships with mandatory cloud accounts. Traditional manufacturers now have until the end of next year to either adopt similar lock-ins or watch their mid-tier lines get displaced on store shelves. Component suppliers are already reallocating production lines toward the new connectors required. That shift leaves fewer options for any company still building non-connected tools. Antler Accelerator expands with new backing. Additional backing rarely alters accelerator terms this late in a cycle. The firm still takes its standard equity slice, even as seed rounds elsewhere climb past the old caps. Founders accepted into the next batch will push back on that clause first. If too many walk, the program risks filling seats with weaker teams by the end of the year. Existing partners at other funds are already preparing term sheets that avoid the overlap, and those moves surface in cap tables within 6 months. Wearable gadget market sees Xreal push. Component yields for micro OLED displays improved enough last quarter to support higher volumes. That change undercuts the usual excuse for delayed launches from bigger names. Google and Apple now face pressure to announce firm ship dates before the competition locks in supplier slots for 2025. Retail buyers will see the difference on price tags by early next year if those dates slip. Suppliers have already started allocating capacity accordingly, leaving little room for last-minute changes from the larger vendors. Solar hardware startup gains VC interest. India's permitting process still bottlenecks most rooftop projects, despite the new capital. Utilities in 3 major states face a choice between clearing backlogs fast or watching installations bypass the grid entirely. Installers have already begun marketing systems that avoid net metering delays. Those offers will pull measurable load away from utilities within the next 18 months if current sign-up trends hold. Regulators are watching the uptake numbers quarter by quarter. Early pilot data already shows bypass rates in double digits. Meta's Forum app targets communities. User-generated groups already exist across several platforms, yet monetization remains weak. Forum's test of paid community features will show whether members actually pay to moderate their own spaces. Reddit now has to match the payment split or risk losing its most active subreddits to the new app by Q4. Early creator calls already signal interest in the revenue share and accelerate the competitor's own rollout timeline. Platform teams already model revenue impact figures this week before any expansion.